Hi, I'm Rameez Ali, and welcome to the very first episode of the Smart Money Stack. This podcast is for anyone who's ever looked at crypto, smart contracts, or the word blockchain and thought, wait, what the block is this? Well, you're in the right place. Let me introduce myself a bit before we dive in. I'm a certified blockchain expert. I've spent years working in traditional finance and now serve as a senior executive at a crypto company. I also wrote a book called Programmable Finance: The Future of Money in a Tokenized World. It's all about how money, the thing we use every single day, is being rebuilt from scratch using code. No theories, not hype, real world transformation. And in this podcast, I'll be your guide to what that means, not just for big institutions or tech nerds, but for you. So let's start where it all begins. What is blockchain really? Let's take the buzz out of the buzzword. At its core, blockchain is simply a shared digital ledger. Now I know ledger sounds something like your accountant would use during the tax season, but hang with me. A ledger is just a fancy word for a record of transactions, like a giant spreadsheet. Only the spreadsheet isn't saved on one person's computer. Instead, it lives on thousands of computers at once, all connected across the internet. Every time someone adds something to the ledger, say a transaction, that change gets copied and verified across the entire network. Everyone sees the same version. No one can sneak in and alter their copy. It's secure, it's transparent, and most importantly, no single person controls it. This is the decentralized magic you always hear about. Why does this matter? Now you might ask, okay, Remy, so it's a shared spreadsheet, so what? Well, let me paint a picture. Right now, most of the systems we use, banks, apps, payment providers, rely on central authorities. If you send money through your bank, the bank records the transactions. If you use Venmo or PayPal, they do the same. They act as gatekeepers. But what happens if the bank makes a mistake? What if a hacker breaks into one of their systems? What if you want to send money across borders and now you're dealing with fees, middlemen, and delays? Blockchain changes all of that because it removes the middlemen. When you send a transaction on a blockchain, there's no company in the middle taking a cut or managing the record. Instead, it gets recorded on the public ledger, visible to all, immutable, and permanent. This makes it cheaper, faster, and in most cases more secure. And that's the game changer. How does blockchain actually work? Let's break this down. Imagine you and a group of friends are sitting in a room with a notebook. Every time somebody spends or earns money, you write it down. But here's the rule: everyone has to agree before anything goes into the notebook. That's what blockchain does, using something called consensus mechanisms. There are different kinds, like proof of work and proof of stake. We'll dive into that in another episode. But for now, just know this: the network has to agree on what's true before anything is added. Once added, these records go into blocks, batches, or transactions. Each block is linked to a previous one like a chain, hence the name blockchain. And because every block is cryptographically secured and connected to the last, it's almost impossible to change history without everyone noticing. Let's take a real world example. Let's take Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the most famous example of blockchain in action. When you send Bitcoin to someone, the transaction is verified by computers all over the world. These are called nodes. Once verified, your transaction is grouped into block with others and added to the Bitcoin blockchain. No bank, no government, no approval needed, just you, the network, and the math. That's it. And because the Bitcoin blockchain is public, you can go online right now and see every single transaction ever made, all the way back to 2009. Now that's transparency. But isn't blockchain just for crypto? Short answer, no. Long answer, let's explore. Yes, blockchain started with cryptocurrency. Bitcoin was the first. Then came Ethereum, and now there are thousands of blockchain based coins and tokens. But the underlying technology, the blockchain itself, has way more uses than just money. You can use it to prove ownership of digital art, that's NFTs, create self executing contracts, smart contracts, more of that in another episode, track goods in supply chain, authenticate identities, build decentralized applications. In fact, big companies like Walmart, IBM, and even governments are using blockchain for logistics, compliance, and digital infrastructure. So, no, it's not just for crypto, it's infrastructure for the future. The trust revolution. One of the biggest impacts of blockchain is on trust. Traditionally, we trust institutions. We trust banks to hold our money. We trust lawyers to validate contracts. We trust notaries to witness signatures. But what if we didn't need to? What if the trust was built into the system? That's what blockchain does. It replaces trust in people with trust in code. Because once something is on the blockchain, it's permanent, transparent, and verifiable by anyone. No manipulation, no hidden agendas, just math. And that's changing everything from how we send money to how we vote to how we own digital assets. Let's take a few myths and misconceptions. Blockchain is anonymous. Not quite, it's actually pseudonymous. Your real name isn't shown, but your wallet address is public. Anyone can track your activity if they know who you are. Is it all about illegal activity? No. In fact, blockchain's transparency makes it easier to trace bad actors. Criminals actually prefer cash. Blockchain wastes energy. That's true for some networks like Bitcoin's proof of work, but many blockchains now use green alternatives that consume a fraction of the power. It's just a fad. Maybe you thought the internet was a fad too, but here we are. Blockchain is not just surviving, it's evolving. Why should you care? Because this stuff is coming fast. In the next decade, we're going to see governments issuing central bank digital currencies, companies moving assets on chain, consumers using blockchain wallets like we use apps today, smart contracts replacing traditional legal agreements, AI agents managing financial portfolios based on blockchain rails. It's not science fiction, it's actually happening now. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're ahead of the curve. Let's go through some closing thoughts. So, here is what I want you to remember from today. Blockchain is a shared ledger that records transactions in a secure, decentralized way. It removes the middleman and brings trust through code. It's not just for crypto, it's for everything from finance to logistics to identity. And it's changing how the world works, whether you're ready or not. In the next episode, we'll dive into smart contracts, the real engine behind blockchain automation. We'll break down how they work, why they matter, and how they're already transforming industries from insurance to real estate. Until then, I'm Rameez Ali. Thanks for listening to the Smart Money Stack.